The mirror had been in the house longer than anyone could remember. A heavy oval thing with a tarnished silver frame and faint scratches that looked almost like writing beneath the glass. When the light hit it a certain way, it shimmered, not like normal glass, but like water catching its breath. Evan found it while cleaning out his late grandmother's old house. He wasn't supposed to be there alone. The place had been sealed for years, a monument to decay. But curiosity and inheritance are powerful things. He told himself he'd only stay long enough to take a few photos for the appraisal. Maybe pick a few antiques that might fetch something online by dusk. The house had started to groan, the kind of old wood noise that sounds like someone walking 2 rooms away. Evan ignored it. He'd already set his phone flashlight on the vanity, brushing away a film of dust from the mirror's surface. It stared back, dull and tired, reflecting his pale face under the flickering light. He wiped again, and for a second, a single breath, the reflection didn't move with him. He froze, looked again. Everything seemed normal. His pulse slowed a little, and he let out a shaky laugh. Old mirror, man, chill. He turned to grab his bag. Behind him, in the mirror, his reflection stayed facing forward. He didn't notice it until he reached the hallway and saw the faint shimmer of movement behind him in the glass of a picture frame. His reflection was still visible, but he wasn't standing anywhere near that angle anymore. The air grew colder. He stepped back toward the vanity, heartbeat in his throat. The reflection now stood closer than before, face clearer, eyes darker. "Okay," he whispered. "This is stupid." He reached out, pressing his palm against the glass. It was ice cold then, from the other side. His reflection's hand pressed back, perfectly aligned, only it wasn't wearing the same watch. His watch had a crack in it. The reflection's DIDN single quotes. TIDN stumbled backward, tripping over the old rug. His phone slid across the floor, flashlight landing upward, throwing shaky shadows on the ceiling. He crawled toward it, chest tight, and grabbed the phone, but in the lens view, his reflection was gone. The mirror was empty, just his breath in the room. Then, faintly, his voice echoed from the mirror, whispered, "Calm. I remember you now." The bulb above him burst. The mirror pulsed like water, and for a split second, before everything went black, Evan saw something step forward from inside the glass, something wearing his face, but smiling like it had waited years to be free. By the next morning, Evan convinced himself it had to be exhaustion. He hadn't slept in nearly 2 days, and every corner of that old house creaked with suggestion. But when he woke, the first thing he saw was the mirror still leaning against the wall, still faintly fogged from the night before. He didn't remember moving it into his room. His phone lay beside him. The last thing he'd done before falling asleep was set it to record, half hoping to catch whatever made that sound. The video file showed nothing at first, just darkness, faint breathing, the slow tick of the old clock. Then, near 2:47 a.m., the phone's microphone caught something like glass stretching, a long, low note, and underneath it, his own voice whispering words he never said, "Let me out." Evan sat upright. The mirror's surface seemed to shift when he stared at it, a ripple that wasn't quite a reflection. He approached carefully, phone still recording, hand shaking. "Hello?" The light in the room flickered once, and then the mirror began to play, scenes his reflection showing moments that had happened years ago. He saw himself as a child, sitting on his grandmother's lap. Same house, same mirror, behind them. He saw her whisper something in his ear and hand him a small key, but he'd never remembered that moment before. He blinked, and the scene changed again. Now, he saw himself in this very room, only older, gaunt, eyes hollow, writing something on the back of the mirror in thick black strokes. The words were backward, barely readable. He leaned closer, squinting. "Don't believe what remembers you." The glass shuddered. His reflection lifted its hand and pressed it flat to the other side. For an instant, the temperature dropped so sharply that his breath fogged the surface. Then his reflection smiled, not in sync. Not delayed, but ahead of him. It mouthed words first. He whispered after, without meaning to. "Do you remember what you did?" Every hair on his body rose. He stumbled back, knocking over the chair. The video still recorded. The screen showed the mirror's glow pulsing brighter, silver bleeding to black. Something moved behind the reflection, a shadowed figure, shape unclear, pacing slowly. When he looked around the real room, nothing was there. Evan's reflection turned away from him. It started walking toward that shadow in the glass, leaving him staring at his own back, and then both disappeared. Only his empty room reflected now. But in the corner of the mirror's image, faint, almost hidden, stood his grandmother, smiling the same way she used to when she said prayers before sleep. The glass pulsed again, and Evan heard her voice whisper, "Calm, affectionate." Near his ear, though, no one was there. You were never supposed to break it. Evan didn't leave the house that day. He told himself he was just sorting through the boxers in the hallway. But every few minutes his eyes drifted back to the bedroom door. The mirror waited there, half covered by a sheet. He could feel it, even when he wasn't looking, like the air around it hummed in a different key. By nightfall he gave in. He set up a lamp and a camera on a tripod facing the mirror. "I just want to understand what's happening," he whispered. "That's all." He pressed record. For the first 5 minutes, nothing moved. Then the lamp flickered once, twice, and the surface of the mirror deepened, like it was filling with water. The reflection rippled in behind his own image. A faint movement began. It was him, but not him now, him from years ago, arguing with someone unseen, slamming a door, shouting words the mic barely caught. "You promised you'd never tell." The glass shook. Another image replaced it. His grandmother, older, frightened, clutching that small silver key. Her lips moved soundlessly, her hand pressed against the mirror from the inside. Evan's throat tightened. "What do you want from me?" he said. The reflection didn't answer. It only pointed down to the base of the mirror. He hesitated, then knelt. The frame had a small carved line, almost invisible beneath layers of dust. He pried at it with a screwdriver. The back panel came loose with a groan of wood and metal. Inside was a narrow, hollow space lined with paper-old photographs, folded notes, brittle yellow pages covered in handwriting. In the center lay a single small mirror shard, wrapped in black cloth. He unwrapped it carefully. The fragment pulsed faintly, almost alive. On its surface, words appeared, burned in silver light. "One of us had to stay." His breath caught. Behind him, the large mirror shimmered. His reflection leaned closer than he had. He turned, but his reflection didn't. It smiled. The lights went out. For a moment, everything went silent. No hum, no ticking clock, just the faint whisper of air. Then, softly, the sound of footsteps came from behind the glass. Slow, measured, heavy. The reflection reached forward, fingers stretching through the surface, as though the glass were melting. The air thickened with the scent of wet metal and old perfume. Evan stumbled backward, clutching the shard, but it burned cold in his hand. His reflection whispered something he couldn't hear until it spoke louder. Clear and steady. "You were supposed to take my place." The mirror rippled violently, throwing light across the walls. In the camera feed, two shapes stood there, now one real. One reversed and only one of them breathed. The reflection raised its hand again. "It's been waiting, Evan. It remembers everything." The mirror cracked from top to bottom with a sound like a scream, and when the light returned, there was only one figure standing in the room. The air in the house felt different after that night, heavy, muffled, like everything had been wrapped in cloth. Evan wandered from room to room, trying to convince himself it was morning, that the world outside still existed, but the windows were dim. No light came through, just a cold gray glow that never changed. When he passed the hallway mirror, his reflection followed a step behind. At first, he didn't notice it. His mind was blank, head pounding. Then he stopped. turned suddenly, and saw it stop too, a heartbeat too late. He stared at himself. "What are you?" he asked. The reflection tilted its head. "You remember now, don't you?" He stumbled back. The voice hadn't come from his mouth. The lights flickered. Every reflective surface around him began to darken. The clock face, the glass on a framed photo, even the shine on the old brass doorknob. Each shimmered faintly, rippling as if something beneath the surface was breathing. He grabbed the small shard he'd found earlier. It still pulsed, colder than before. In its reflection, the house looked cleaner, newer-like. Time was rewinding inside it. He saw a young boy himself, running through the hall. He saw his grandmother smiling by the stairs, whispering something into the mirror's edge. The reflection of the boy turned and looked directly at him. Then, in the same whispering tone as before, he said, "She saved you. She gave you the wrong side." The realization hit him like a blow. His grandmother hadn't kept the mirror to trap something, she'd kept it to protect him. One side belonged to the living. The other side remembered the rest, and when he broke the seal, the sides blurred. Evan's reflection smiled again, but this time there was no malice-only recognition. "It's been years," it said. "We switched once before. Don't you remember?" The room began to stretch, the walls bending in the corners of his vision. Each mirror in the house flickered alive, showing scenes from his life birthdays. Laughter, arguments, quiet nights of guilt he never spoke about. The reflections weren't copies. They were versions, each remembering something slightly different, slightly wrong. He pressed his palm to the cracked glass. "I want out," he whispered. The reflection leaned closer, eyes black like ink. "Then take my place again." The shard in his hand glowed bright white, burning through his palm. He dropped it with a cry, but instead of falling, it floated upward, embedding itself into the mirror's fracture. The crack sealed instantly, smooth and perfect. Then everything went still. When Evan opened his eyes, daylight filled the house. The air was warm again. His reflection smiled naturally, moving with him. He almost laughed from relief until he saw the camera still recording on the tripod. The screen showed him standing in front of the mirror, breathing hard. Only in the video, his reflection wasn't smiling. It was pounding on the inside of the glass. The night had turned colder, the air inside the house thick with something unseen. Every light flickered as if gasping for power. When Hira opened her eyes, she wasn't in her room anymore. The ceiling was higher, the walls breathing like lungs. A soft whisper crawled into her ears, her own voice, repeating her name from somewhere far behind her. She turned, and the corridor stretched endlessly. At the far end stood someone tall, motionless, head tilted as if studying her. It looked like her father, but he had been dead for years. His mouth opened slowly, wider than it should have, and a deep growl rolled out. "You shouldn't have let her in." Hira's heart slammed in her chest. She stumbled backward, her hand brushing the cold wall, except it wasn't a wall anymore. It was warm. It pulsed. When she pulled her hand back, something sticky clung to her skin, black and thick like tar dot from behind. The whisper turned into a hiss, closer, wet, breathing. She spun around. The girl from the mirror was standing inches away, her eyes hollow, her lips trembling. "Do you hear her too?" she asked softly, before Hira could answer. Every door in the corridor burst open at once, revealing empty rooms filled with moving shadows. Faces appeared inside them, screaming silently, pressing against invisible glass, begging to be let out. The girl's hand shot forward, grabbing Hiro's wrist. Her grip was ice. "She's awake now," the girl said, her smile breaking into something monstrous. "Who?" Hira cried. The floor cracked open beneath them. A black void yawned wide, and from it came the sound of crawling, hundreds of tiny feet, nails scraping the wood. Hira screamed and tried to pull away, but the girl wouldn't let go. Then, suddenly, silence. Everything froze. A faint voice echoed from above her mother's. "Hira, Beta, "Are you awake?" Hira blinked, and she was back in her room. Morning light leaked through the curtains. Her mother stood at the door, holding a tray of tea. But as she stepped closer, Hira noticed her reflection in the window. There were two figures in it, her mother, and someone standing behind her, smiling at Hira. The reflection lifted a hand and waved slowly, and Hira finally understood. The guest had never left. The storm had stopped hours ago, but the silence that followed was worse. The kind that presses against your ears until you start hearing your own heartbeat. The old house stood perfectly still, soaked in moonlight, breathing through the cracks in its wooden walls. Ethan sat in the corner of the guest room, staring at the empty chair across from him. It was rocking slowly, though no one had touched it. The air smelled faintly of rain and old wood, and beneath it, something else, like metal, like blood. He wanted to call out for his sister, but the memory of her face twisted at the last moment when she disappeared kept him frozen. The last thing she had said before the lights went out still echoed in his head. "Don't open the door again." But the door had opened, and now the silence felt alive. Ethan's breathing quickened as he noticed something on the floor, a wet trail leading from the door to the window. He followed it with trembling eyes until it stopped right beneath the rocking chair. He squinted. There was something there, pale fingers. Clutching the leg of the chair, the fingers moved. The chair stopped rocking, and a voice, no louder than a whisper, came from beneath it. "You shouldn't have stayed the night." Ethan scrambled back, tripping over the rug. He tried to crawl toward the hallway, but the house seemed to shift. Every door was now slightly open, just enough to show the darkness beyond. In one of them, a figure stood, the same height as him, the same clothes. The figure tilted its head slowly, mirroring his every move. Ethan's mind spun. He was looking at himself, but his reflection wasn't afraid. It was smiling. The other Ethan stepped closer, one foot after another, until the two stood face to face. The copy leaned in, its voice deep and hollow, echoing from every wall. "I told you. You were the guest." The lights flickered, and when they came back on, there was only one Ethan left standing, but his eyes were no longer his own. He turned to the window and stared out at the empty road where the wind was whispering again. The same whisper carried through every house on the street that night, faint but clear. "The silent guest has arrived. The silent guest has arrived." The rain began again, soft at first, then heavy, pounding against the glass like 1,000 fingertips. Ethan stood motionless, staring at the window. The reflection looking back wasn't his anymore. It blinked slower, smiled differently, breathed heavier. The glass fogged from the inside, not the outside. Somewhere behind him. The chair creaked again. He turned. The guest room looked normal now. No trail of blood, no pale fingers. Just the faint sound of dripping water echoing through the hallway. Yet every step he took left behind a wet footprint, though he hadn't been near the rain downstairs. The clock struck 3:15 a.m. The moment the last chime faded, the house sighed. Not the creak of old wood. A sigh, long and human. Ethan's pulse raced as he heard soft footsteps pacing the floor above him. But this was a single-story house. He whispered into the air, "Who's there?" A whisper came back, identical in tone and breath. "Who's there?" The lights flickered again. This time, they didn't come back. Darkness filled the house like water flooding a sinking ship. Ethan fumbled for his phone, but the screen glitched. The camera app opened by itself. It was facing the hallway. Something was moving there, not walking, crawling, a figure, long-limbed and twisted, dragging itself toward him on all fours. Its head hung low, hair covering its face. Every time the lightning flashed, it was closer. He stumbled back, crashing into the table, glass shattering around him. He pointed the phone light forward. The hallway was empty. Then the phone buzzed. A new message. From Ethan Yu. He opened it with trembling hands. The text read, "Stop looking at me. Let me finish wearing you." The air went cold. The lights flickered once more, and for a split second, Ethan saw it. The same figure, now standing perfectly straight behind him in the reflection of the broken glass. It smiled wide, its eyes hollow and wet, and when he turned, it was gone. The front door creaked open slowly by itself. Wind roared inside, carrying whispers, faint but unmistakable. Another house, another guest. Ethan's phone slipped from his hand as the screen flickered between the camera feed and static. For a moment, he saw the street outside completely empty, except for one figure walking barefoot in the rain, knocking softly at every door. Knock, knock, knock. No one answered, but it kept moving, smiling, whispering the same line Ethan had once heard in his dreams. "Don't worry, I'm invited." And in the distance, another house light flicked on. Another window opened. Another soul welcomed the silent guest. The rain had stopped by morning, leaving the street washed clean to clean, as if something had taken everything away with it. The neighbors said the old Harris house looked quieter than usual, but no one knocked. They all knew the stories. Strange lights at night, voices in the dark, people moving inside even after the owners were gone. By evening, the for sale sign went up, and by the end of the week, it came down. A new family had arrived. The Parkers, a young couple, Daniel and Claire, and their 6-year-old daughter, Lily. They didn't believe in the local myths. To them, the whispers about the silent guest were just small-town drama. The house looked beautiful in the sunset, freshly painted walls, creaky but charming stairs, and a fireplace that still smelled of pine. But the first night felt off. Daniel woke around 2:47 a.m. to the sound of footsteps in the hallway. Light ones, almost like someone barefoot. He assumed it was Lily, maybe scared in a new house. He opened the bedroom door, empty hallway. The sound stopped. Then came a whisper, not from the hall, but from inside the wall, behind his bed. "Don't look at me yet." Daniel froze. The voice was faint but close, like a breath against his ear. He turned on the lamp. Nothing. Just the wallpaper slightly peeling near the corner. The next morning, Claire found small wet footprints in the living room. They started from the front door and stopped at the fireplace. They weren't Lily's. They were too long. That night, Lily came into her parents' room holding her teddy bear tight. "Daddy," she said, trembling. "He's standing in my room." Daniel sat up, heart pounding. "Who?" "The man who knocks," she whispered. "He said he used to live here. He wants to stay." He tried to comfort her, tucking her in beside Claire, but his mind wouldn't stop replaying her words. "The man who knocks." At exactly 3 a.m., the knocking began. 3 slow knocks at the front door. Knock, knock, knock. Daniel grabbed the baseball bat he kept in the closet and went to the window. The porch was empty. Rain started again, faint but constant. When he turned back, the living room lights were flickering. He stepped closer and froze. There were handprints on the inside of the glass. Not 1 or 2 dozens. All pressed from the inside out, as if something had been trying to get out. Not in. Then the television turned on by itself. Static, then a blurry image. The previous owner, Ethan, standing in the same living room, eyes dark, motionless. Daniel whispered, "What the hell?" Ethan's figure on the TV turned its head slowly, staring directly at him. Then it smiled, a crooked, hollow smile. And in the static, a voice crawled through the speakers. "You opened the door." The screen went black. From upstairs, Lily screamed. Daniel ran 2 steps at a time, bursting into her room. She was standing on the bed, pointing toward the open closet. Inside, through the hanging clothes, 2 pale hands were gripping the door frame. Then came the whisper again, calm and near. "Don't look at me yet." The hands slid back into the dark. Daniel grabbed Lily and backed away, but the closet door creaked open by itself, inch by inch. Inside, The space was deeper than it should have been, like it went further than the wall allowed. At the very end of that black space, a face appeared. Ethan's face. It smiled again, voice layered with echoes, whispering words that didn't sound human anymore. The silent guest never leaves. We just move rooms. And as the house lights died, one by one, the last thing Daniel heard was his daughter's small voice whispering something she couldn't have known. "Daddy, it's 3:15. The clock struck once, then silence. The next morning, the street was silent. No birds, no cars, no voices. Just fog rolling low across the road. The Parker house stood still, every curtain drawn tight. The neighbors said they hadn't seen Daniel, Claire, or Lily since last night. But when someone finally walked up to check, the front door was already open. Inside, everything looked untouched. Breakfast half prepared, toys scattered on the carpet, a kettle still sitting on the stove. But the air was freezing, as if the house had forgotten how to breathe. A faint dripping sound echoed from the hallway. It led to the guest room, the same one Ethan had stayed in. The rocking chair was moving again. Slow, steady, patient, and on it, a small teddy bear sat upright, its fur soaked. One glass eye missing. On the wall behind the chair, written in damp streaks, were words only visible when the light flickered. "We never left." In the kitchen, the clock ticked softly to 3:15, even though it was broad daylight. The moment the clock struck, the lights dimmed. A shadow crossed the hallway, not quick, not like a person walking. It flowed, dragging itself across the floor like smoke searching for air. Then came the knock, 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 but this time, it wasn't from the front door. It was from the inside. The sound came from the floorboards, as if something beneath the house was knocking upward, asking to be let out. The lights flickered again, and through the window, a shape appeared, a tall man in the rain, barefoot, head tilted, watching the house. The same one from the old camera footage. He smiled, one by one. Every light in every house down the street flickered off, then on, then off again. A pulse spreading through the neighborhood, like a living heartbeat. The sound of knocking began echoing from all directions now, from walls, doors, attics, basements, each house answering the next dot, until finally, the street fell into silence. For a long moment, nothing moved. Then, in every window, the same shadow appeared, tall, still, watching, and in every home, someone whispered the same words, words that no one could have known, unless they'd already been marked. The silent guest has arrived. The fog grew thicker, swallowing the houses one by one. When it finally cleared, the street was empty. The for sale sign stood again, swaying gently in the wind. The house waited for the next family, for the next night, for the next open door, and somewhere, from deep within the walls, the voice that had started it all whispered softly, "Don't look at me yet." Fade to black. Silence. Then, one last whisper, "Subscribe, share, and stay in the shadows. Share, and stay in the shadows."